Welcome to the Wattage Ride out of McKinney, Texas, just north of Dallas. Brought to you by the Wattage Coffee Company, and of course brought to you by PACC, the racing team that I am on. And we were in charge of the ride today, as officially designated by Chad, the owner of Cadence Cyclery. Because of his absence due to health reasons, we were the hosts of the ride today, and we are sponsored, of course, by Cadence Cyclery, among other sponsors. Well, here we are. I can't resist turning shots as I make these clips. This is a race ride, meaning that there is a finish line and it is treated like a road race. Although the numbers were small today in terms of people on the start, and of course as time went, people were dropped. But anyway, this part right here, we're in the crosswinds, and I thought this was worth including, where a little cooperative echelon by 4 people as we rotate around here, with Steve Allen appears behind as the 5th rider, acting as the gatekeeper, as the echelon is in play behind him. And if we were trying to drop people right here, we wouldn't be so far over to the left. We'd be further over to the right, giving just the 4 of us enough room to maneuver. But in this case, it is more of a cooperative situation rather than a try to drop everyone off the back situation, which of course wouldn't be to our advantage in terms of my team PACC, because we constitute most of the riders currently left in the group. My teammates are in the white and also red, yellow, and black, so there's a couple different jerseys. Steve Allen leading the charge up this hill. I guess this hill should get a name, or maybe it has a name. But you can see here, it's pretty steep. I would say it's like 8%, maybe a little more than that, 9%, I don't know. But pretty short, and a short, sharp effort, above 600 watts for part of this. And you can see just a small hill like that can lead to big gaps, where power to weight ratios, people's ability to put out power under fatigue and so forth, can play a large role in what happens. So even if you're in a place that doesn't have a lot of climbing, even a short climb can make a big difference in terms of an attack. Here is Clint making a turn as we head towards the ranchettes. And Clint, at this point, is our big rival. So in terms of finishing on the quote-unquote podium, here we are making a right-hand turn onto the ranchettes. What a beautiful day in terms of the clouds. As I'm watching the video, I thought, man, it's just pretty out there. Of course, during the ride, I'm not sure I noticed it very much. I love this little stretch through the ranchettes here. It's just so pretty as we make this turn, going downhill and then uphill. Again, be fun on a motorcycle or something like that, but it's also fun on bikes. John now going to the front. John Summers, the Cat 2 on our team, and Clint there making sure that John doesn't go off the front. That's going to be a theme throughout the rest of the ride here. There's Mike Steves just in front of me, me 4th wheel, us turning left out of the ranchettes. So, did not feel good on this ride today. My back was killing me. 2.5 weeks ago or so, I had a really bad mechanical on the pop ride. My tire exploded, literally exploded, the sidewall exploded. And rather than just sit there and wait for a ride, it was going to be a while before I could be. I actually walked towards home carrying my bike for about 2 miles, and that just torqued my back. It was uncomfortable as I was doing it, but I didn't realize I was doing some significant damage at the time, and my back's been bothering me ever since. So hopefully it's just a little bit of a strain, maybe some pulled ligaments or something, and I'm going to be getting back in form. But when your back's aching the whole time, it kind of sucks. Also, I've been sick for 3 weeks. I don't know if you have the same experience, but my kid gets sick for 2 days, then I get sick, and I guess sickness doesn't last for 2 days. It lasts for 2 or 3 weeks. Just been coughing and phlegm and so forth. What a mess. And life's been interfering with my cycling. Here we are turning left on the alternative finish route. And so anyway, work has been interfering with my cycling. My work is my pastime. Cycling is my real work. No, just kidding. Sometimes, life interferes. So here's Jeff. He's putting in a dig here, and look at me. I'm doing 130 watts, 140 watts. I'm just hoping that Jeff will go off the front here. And this is me starting to play games in terms of actually having this as a race ride and us competing for the finish here. But Lynn would have none of it. my teammate there, and Clint is quickly on Lynn's wheel. We certainly don't want Clint to go up the road. Clint is a breakaway specialist, so his best option for his finish is to be part of a breakaway and to pare down the field. So to have our numbers limited. As you can see, it is actually entirely my teammates and me against Clint going into the finish here. So we're making the right-hand turn here, and so we've gone from a headwind into a crosswind. John interfered a little bit with that truck. I mean, he didn't interfere with the truck. The truck interfered with him. Shame on that truck. Shame on that truck for interfering with our race ride. Anyway, just that better line in the turn, more speed he carried into the turn than putting in a dig. Clint is on his wheel, or at least covering it, now on his wheel, and I'm on Clint's wheel, not doing any work. Man, everyone else got dropped, just the four of us here, and I did not realize that until I watched the video footage. Sorry about the bouncing footage, especially in the rear. This chip seal is a lot of vibration, and it just gives a hint of how much vibration by virtue of how much that rear Cycle IQ camera is bouncing. That's Jeff Hall there that covered that gap. Good on him. If he had enough energy to cover the gap, maybe if he had been a little closer to the wheels, the gap wouldn't have opened up in the first place, because of course it takes more energy to cover it by yourself than to stay on a wheel. And here we are, just 1, 2, 3, 4 of us, with the other guys in terms of my teammates that are charging from the rear, trying to catch us again. So an ideal finish for us here would be 1, 2, 3 on the podium. I mean, that's the only possible finish, right? 1, 2, 3 on the podium for us, because it's like 7-on-1. We should be able to drop Clint, or at least 3 of us should be able to drop Clint if we play our cards correctly. Of course, playing our cards correctly does include the prerequisite that one actually knows what's going on. And that's a common theme in terms of mistakes that I make, is I don't know what's going on and I'm not fully apprised of the situation. So again, John putting in a little dig, not an all-out effort, but just a little dig, forcing Clint to match that. And you can see, again, it looks like the guys in the back are not quite getting back on. Little gap behind me to Jeff. He needs to get on my wheel immediately. Get out of the crosswind, get over to the right-hand side of the road so that he can save energy. So there he is back. Good work on his part. And John's putting in this work, and I'm feeling like crap. I just absolutely do not want to do anything. Just today was a day where I'd prefer not to have done this ride. I would have preferred maybe to do a solo ride, or a slower ride, a cooperative ride, just because little few miles this week, and I just needed to have some time on the bike. But since we were in charge of the ride for the first time ever, I felt obligated to come and represent and have fun on the Wattage ride. So my mindset at this particular moment is I don't really want to do anything. I certainly don't want to attack, and I was feeling guilty at this point for not attacking over the top when John puts in these digs. He's doing all the work. I was really hoping that Mike or some of my other teammates would do the counterattacks. So in terms of, you have to think here, why is Clint on the front? If you put your let's think in terms of us being Clint. What is his best role here? Well, if he knows he's going to be constantly attacked, the best thing he can do is try to whittle down the field so there are less people to attack. So he should probably counterattack or make it difficult for the rest of us, such that that's why he's on the front right now, is because if he slows down and we slow down, then all the rest of our teammates catch on and we have even more of an advantage. So that's why it's to his advantage right now to be pulling on the front. But if he's pulling on the front right now, even if he's not going super hard, that puts him at risk. So here's my attack. Now, just before this, I had told John, I'm going to attack, and I want you to counterattack over me when Clint catches me. So I'm not intending to get away here. Of course, if Clint just lets me go, I'll go, but I'm not feeling good. This is sort of like my one last ditch effort to do something to help. And I'm hoping that this is a definitive move that allows John, my teammate, to attack over us and go. So you can see at first I attacked over the left. That's with the winds coming from the left. And then I thought, oh, maybe I should move over to the right so that Clint will be guttered when he gets to me. You can see I moved over to the left again. That was John yelling at me to get over to the left so that he could get out of the gutter. John, with putting in his pulls and little digs earlier, plus the effort to get on Clint's wheel there, led to him not feeling like he had the energy to counterattack. So what happened here? What did I accomplish? I accomplished the exact opposite of what I needed to accomplish, which is I have whittled the field down to just 3 of us. That includes Clint. So I've actually done something that Clint would have been very happy to have accomplished, which is to be in a breakaway of 3, having dropped the rest of my teammates. So totally counterproductive move on my part. Shouldn't have done that. Should have kept everyone together. And I guess the counter argument to that is that perhaps this was going to happen anyway because the guys had already been dropped or were struggling to stay on. So also, John made the point that on my attack, I should have probably stayed over to the left the entire time so that Clint would have been forced to go over to the left, and that would have allowed my teammates who were on Clint's wheel to just have more room in terms of the crosswind and not being guttered. Now, I didn't have good awareness of what was going on. I thought we were all together before this. I didn't realize, the entire time I did not realize that we had guys off the back that were struggling, that were far back. I thought we were all together. So, again, if you watch my videos, you'll know that that's a common theme. I don't know what's going on behind me. This is just me rolling forward, not back, but just because I guess I'm heavier than the rest of them. I just can carry more momentum going downhill, and now we're headed uphill. And oof, I'm not feeling good at this point. My MPA down the bottom left, maximal power available and exert metric. So I think my current signature says that when I'm rested, my maximum power available is about 1350 watts. So I'm below that, which means that I've tapped into my reserves. Anytime I'm below that means that I've put in efforts above threshold. My threshold's somewhere around 300. Maybe that's a slight overestimation of my threshold, so 300 watts or so. Maybe it's really like 290 watts or something like that. So anyway, so you can see here I'm going 400 watts and my MPA is falling. So that's an example of how that MPA works. It's a little bit like my battery. How much do I have in the battery? Like F1 drivers, they have their hybrid electric system. They have a battery. They have to charge their batteries. They have to, they can use their battery for more speed. This is me using my battery. So now it's just the 3 of us. It looks like the guys are far off the back. They are not likely to catch us unless we completely slow down. That could be one strategy we employ here, which is to go slow and hope that the guys behind us haven't given up. And they'll catch up to us and we'll have an advantage going into the sprint situation. So we're getting pretty close to the sprint. And Clint's on the front here. We're forcing him to the front. In terms of the guys behind us, I would say the best sprinter of those guys is probably Eddie. Eddie joining the ride for the second time. He usually doesn't do this ride. It was good to have Eddie on the ride, but he's in the back. He needs to be with us if he's going to put in a sprint. But he'd be a good person to put in a counter-attack sprint if we get into a sprint situation, theoretically. So John putting in a little dig there again, and I'm absolutely thinking that I do not want to do anything. I do not want to counterattack. I don't even want to be here. I'm just totally going to sit in and just be on Clint's wheel. And that's fine for me in terms of the sprint finish because I'm pretty sure that I can outsprint Clint in the finish. Again, Clint being more of a TT kind of specialist, breakaway specialist. He's not a sprint specialist, so I'm a little bit more of a sprint specialist than he is. So that would be to my advantage if he does not drop me and I just completely stay on his wheel. So here's Clint at the front again. John is getting a rest behind, and I'm absolutely not pulling through at all. So boom, John goes again. And look at my watts down there. Just staying on Clint's wheel requires 700 watts or so. Uh, Clint certainly is putting in a bigger effort than me because I'm in his draft and we're going into a bit of a headwind. So I'm getting a lot of rest in terms of watts saved by staying on his wheel. Pretty soon we're going to be making a right-hand turn and we'll be very close to the sprint finish. There's a couple of hills, so you go to the top of one hill, you go have a descent, and then after the rise on the second hill is the yellow sign that is the finish line. So that's what we're facing here. And again, I'm feeling guilty at this point, like I should have counterattacked at some point, making John do all the work in terms of the attacking, but I just don't. I'm just mentally not there, physically not there, and not wanting to do anything. So Clint, again, he is being forced to work, forced to chase back onto John, and I am completely resting. And I guess guilt a little bit, and I thought, well, let me put in the counter move here, and this will just make John's next move more effective. Because now Clint's going to have to chase to me, and that's just one more attack he's going to have to deal with. No rest for him, no rest for the weary. And so I look back here, and I'm like, I got a significant gap. So I'm just going to see if I can maintain this gap. We make the right-hand turn for the gas station, and now we are at the final bit of the Wattage ride. The Wattage ride. The premier race ride, we argue, on the north side of the Metroplex. Even if numbers were down today, this was a little bit more like an intra-squad scrimmage today. We were missing, no Matrix, no Windsor, and other teams that sometimes are represented. Cadence riders were only about 3 or 4 of them today, so even though this is a Cadence ride, the Cadence attendance has been a little bit down. For reasons that are not entirely clear, you can see on the flag on the right that the wind is blowing from the left to right. It doesn't really matter so much where I am on the road, but just out of principle's sake, I am on the right side in the gutter and just putting in an effort here. I looked back several times as we're going through this section here because I was just wanting to see if they were going towards me. I wanted to put in a hard effort, but like I said, I'm not feeling so great. If you went back and looked, or maybe you noticed when I did that attack on Clint, it wasn't a big attack. I mean, I was just like 400 watts. It was not like even putting. It wasn't 1,000 watts. It wasn't 700 watts. It was like a 400 watt, 350 watt attack. It was almost nothing. But that just shows when the elastic breaks, it can break, and it doesn't take a huge attack if someone is tired. So here we are on the first downhill and going to this first hill. So as I mentioned before, the finish is at the top of the second hill. This is the top of the first hill. Something that was curious to me was my heart rate. I noticed this after the ride because I didn't look at any data when I was on the ride. I just had my map on my screen. I didn't have watts, time, anything. So didn't have my MPA showing, anything like that. So my heart rate was a lot higher than I would have expected. So we're going to get to the top of the second rise here, and I'm going to hit, I think, 173 beats per minute, which is the highest I've ever seen my heart rate for a long, long time, even though I wasn't even putting in 100% effort because I wasn't feeling good and I just was holding back a little bit. If they catch me, that's fine, because I assume that John is not doing any pulling and he can counterattack and he can probably, so I'm not so concerned about, I'm kind of wanting to win and kind of putting in effort, but I'm putting in like a hard effort where I think it's going to take a massive effort by Clint to cover the gap at the watts that I'm going and the perceived exertion I'm feeling. This is the last climb. The finish line is over the top of this climb, and I'm looking back several times to just check and see how close they are. It's kind of hard to, when you're going kind of hard, it's kind of hard to look back and safely do that. That's why I never know what's going on behind me. So here we are to the finish, and as I see the sign that is the finish line, I look back because I want to pull off the power as soon as possible. My heart rate is at maximum, even though my MPA is actually not that low. I mean, I'm not even near 900 or 800 MPA. So something's not going so great with my body, I think. So we'll have to check in. I wonder, I'll be curious to see. This is the second time that I've had a heart rate that was higher than I expected. Now, it's not so high that it's something like atrial fibrillation or something like that, but curious about that. Anyway, first place on a kind of B-side wattage ride today, and some fun, team tactics. Of course, it would have been a lot more fun if there were more guys on the ride from different teams and more tactics to planes. 7-on-1 tactics are not so. It's still something, to practice. It's still something to do. But anyway, that's the wattage ride. Hope you have gotten something from this. And I've taken a break from posting videos, so this is the first one in a while. And we will see what happens in the future. Thanks for checking in. Consider liking and subscribing if you haven't. And we'll see you later. Bye-bye.